be able to get these things corrected and more clearly understood. Now, first off, really good news. When I looked at number one, virtually every person had it right. Not everybody, but virtually everybody. What are 3 negatives and 2 negatives, everybody? 5 negatives. Good. So just about every person put down -5. Number 2 was almost as successful. What was the answer to number 2? Rich?
-2.
A -2, good. Now, it wasn't quite as successful. Let me go back and show you some work here. On number 1, here's 3 negatives, and there's 2 more negatives, so altogether we have 5 negatives. On number 2, here's 7 negatives and 5 positives. Now, what happens when a positive and a negative come together?
They cancel each other
They
out.
cancel each other out. They go da-die. So there's 5 of each. So they take away this, and what's left there? 2 negatives. So what I'd like you to be able to do is look at in your mind and picture 7 negatives, 5 negatives. Picture this diagram and what's left over. In the first case, what's left over? Well, nothing cancels each other out. So I just add them all up and I have 5 little negative signs there. So my answer is 5 negatives. In this case, I have 2 negatives. Now, number 3, a lot of people missed. A lot of people put down 0. If you put down 0, let me ask you a question from a logic point of view. What would 4 minus 4 be? 0. So if 4 minus 4 is 0, how could 4 minus -4 also be 0?
Whoa.
You with me on that?
Yeah.
All right. Like let's say, for instance, you have a certain amount of money in your wallet and you buy something, and then you have $10 left. So let's say you had $25 in your wallet. You bought something for $15 and you got $10 left. So if 25 minus 15 is 10, how could 25 minus any other number also be 10? You with me? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that if you start with any number and you take away a different number to get to an answer like 10, if I start with 25, there's only one number in the whole world that if I subtract it from 25 gets me to 10? Right? It doesn't happen with 10 numbers. It's only one number. 25 minus that number is 10. So in this problem, I said, what would 4 minus 4 be?
0.
0. So then how could 4 minus -4 also be 0? How could that be? I can't. Okay? Now, remember the other day we talked about circle agregar? Right? We talked about circle agregar? Right? In Spanish, agregar means to add. And I think the word was circulo. What is it? Circular. Okay. So when you see 2 negative signs in a row like this, it means to add the opposite. To add the opposite would be to add them. And the easy way to do it is to just circle them and add. So this whole question becomes 4 plus 4. So now, everybody, what is 4 plus 4? 8. Okay? So the answer to number 3 is 8. Now, we get to the answer to number 4. Now, by the way, this is a great example of why I hate kids going to the bathroom during class. Because we are now getting at the 2 most popularly missed questions. And where's he going?
The bathroom.
To the bathroom. So who's not learning the 2 most popularly missed things? That's why you can't do that. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm going to change from 5 and 9, make the numbers a little smaller. What are 2 Pokemon shirts and 3 Pokemon shirts? 5 Pokemon shirts, good. What are 2 weird-looking green pens with 3 weird-looking green pens?
5 green.
5 weird-looking green pens. Let's get to the heart of the matter here. What's 1 handful of trail mix? Plus another handful of trail mix. 2 handfuls. Yeah, I didn't get enough M&Ms on that one, so I got to go back in there and dig through and get a couple M&Ms. Yes, it's going to be M&Ms. I didn't take a handful of trail mix and another handful of trail mix and get Twinkies, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No Twinkies. You don't get Twinkies out of trail mix.
I won.
So let me ask you a question. If I have 5 ends and I add
You should eat it.
9 and
Nothing there. You should eat it.
what are 5 ends and 9 ends.
14 ends.
Bingo! Now,
Right?
question. Well, actually, let me ask the question after I go over how she forgot the freaking X. Okay? Now, first off, what kind of 2 is this?
A2.
Positive. What kind of 3 is that? So when I add them all up, what am I going to get? Negative, definitely. Okay? Now, negative 1 what? It's not negative 1x. Negative 1x squared. Now, look at this. This is extremely important. Ready? Watch me now. Put your pens down. Look at me. I know that's hard, but please look at me. Now, numbers what? Number what?
Number.
Number. Ends. X squareds what?
X squared.
X squareds. This is true whenever you add or subtract. But remember, subtraction is really, it's really addition. And the other thing is we have this phrase, combine like terms. That is true whenever you are doing that. So now, would you please look at your quiz for a moment, particularly on numbers 4 and 5. Did you put an answer that changed what we were talking about? Did you put an answer on number 4 that did not have an N in it? On number 5, did you put an answer that did not have an X squared in it? Okay? Now, here's the deal. Remember what I said to you before? The whole purpose, the point behind the quiz form, is to say to you, these are the things you need to know. You need to be better at these things. Okay? Now, my experience is, and by the way, it's also what you're expected to know. This is a summary of the last 3 days' worth of work. I believe that if you go home tonight and before you start your homework, you spend 1.5 minutes going over this stuff. Then you do your homework, and when you're done, you spend 1 minute going over this stuff. How many people here know in their heart that they're going to do much better on tomorrow's quiz? Exactly. Okay? So that's the purpose of the quiz. And then tomorrow, I think the grades are going to skyrocket. You get cookies on day 1. Nobody got 100. Nobody's getting any
I got
cookies.
400.
You could
But
give me.
perhaps on the next quiz, someone will win cookies.
I mean, like, I even shared my quote to class.
I got a 400.
Yeah, well, the thing is, after the first day, I've gone over all the little tricks in the quizzes. So now, tomorrow's quiz, guys, looks exactly the same. I just changed the numbers. There is no difference between tomorrow's quiz and this quiz. Except whereas today came out to 14N, tomorrow might come out to 15N. But it's still an N and it's still all going along. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Now, let's get talking about today's Do It. You know, I have been very blessed to have learned how to coach from some of the best coaches in New York State, and that is a true statement. And they've taught me so much that it's really impacted how I teach. And there needs to be a certain structure, a way that we go about our business as a class. First off, we walk in and we got to shake that mindset from lunch. We get that out of our system. Now, to learn, there's certain things that we drill daily. In wrestling, I call them the daily basic drills. We go over them day after day after day. And there is an element of routineness which sometimes leads to a little bit of boredom. But when you get really good at those things, you always get them right. And once you're getting them right all the time, all of a sudden it's a whole lot of fun. Within that, we have the quiz, then we have the Do It. And the Do It is a really important part of class. And sometimes kids will turn around and they won't take the Do It as seriously as they should. So make sure that you're taking this super seriously. Okay. Can anybody tell me what it is I'm trying to get at in number 1A here? What is it that, because you see this now 3 days in a row. What is it that I'm trying to see if you know not to do, Rach? Yeah, what am I trying to trick you with on this question?
So, like, PEMDAS, the addition sometimes comes first.
Yeah,
How you say it.
when you get down to addition and subtraction, it's just left to right. Don't do the addition first. 7 minus 3 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6.
Yay.
Next, what do I do first here? Do I do the multiplication or do I do the exponents?
Exponents.
Exponents. So, what is, you have sheet 4 today, right? Good. The first thing I have to do is 3 to the third power. What does 3 to the third equal? 27, good. And now I have to do 5 times 4, which is 20. And I add them up and I get 47. Now I need to do x is 12, b is 4, over 4 times c is 8. These are the same numbers as the other day. That usually doesn't work out. 12 plus 8 over 8, which is 20 over 8, which works out to be 2.5 or 2.5. Okay? Find each sum, model with algebra tiles. What's negative 5 plus 2?
Negative
Negative
3.
3. What's negative 3 plus negative 7?
Negative 10.
Negative 10, nice. What's negative 2 plus negative 1?
Negative 3.
Negative 3, nicely done. Let me keep going here. And this is what we look for. Each day we change to do it just a little bit, and we proceed. There's your selected homework answers. And now we talk about rules for multiplication and division. So we covered the rules for addition, we covered the rules for subtraction, and what we really did was we really didn't even teach you any rules. We said, look, anytime you add anything on the face of the earth, it's got to be the same kind of thing. So if I add negatives to negatives, I get negatives. If I add positives to positives, I get positives. If the signs are different, you can see the list. They go die, they cancel out. Now, multiplication and division. Okay. Ready? What's 3 times 3? 9. What's 3 times 2? That stinks. The whole class says 3 times 2. That stinks. 3 times 2.
6.
Nice. 3 times 1. 3 times my favorite. 0. Can you see a pattern here?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Goes down by
Goes down by 3. So if I'm at 0 and I go down by 3, where should I get to?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. So that means that
Negative
3
6.
times negative 1 is negative 3. If I go down 3 again, what do I get to? Negative 6. Huh, wait a minute. 3 times 2 was 6. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. All right. I'm watching. Seeing what's going on here. See, isn't it true that every time I started with 3? Can everybody see that? Right? Now, here I multiplied by a positive, and the answer stayed what?
positive.
But what happened when I multiplied by a negative?
Turned into a negative.
It turned into a negative. In other words, it started as a positive, it became a negative. Started as a positive, it became a negative. All right, that's a pattern worth looking at and worth thinking, maybe there's something there. Let's see if we can get that pattern to continue a little bit. Ready? 4 times 2? 8. 4 times 1?
4.
4 times 0?
0.
What's my pattern?
Going down by 4.
Down by 4. So what should the next one be?
Negative 4.
And then? Hey, look, it did it again. As long as I was multiplying by a positive, the sign stayed the same, right? But as soon as I multiplied by a negative, it started positive, but what did it become? Negative. When it started positive here, what did it become? Negative. Okay, let's go over here. Ready? Let's start with a negative. Now, negative, we just did one like this. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 0 is 0. What do you notice here about the pattern? Am I going, first off, am I going down or up?
Up.
Up. How much am I going up?
5.
5. So 0 plus 5.
5.
5. And then, oh, it's the same thing. Let's do 2 here. I'm sorry. What's 5 plus 5?
10.
10. So, look, again, when I multiplied by a positive number, it started out negative. What did it end up?
Negative.
Negative. But when I multiplied by a negative number, it started out negative and it became
Positive.
positive.
Wait.
Okay, so in other words, I'm seeing a pattern here. When I multiply by a negative, doesn't that first one change? Right? It was negative, what does it become? Positive. It was negative, what does it become?
Positive.
Look here. I multiplied by a negative here, and it was positive, what did it become?
Negative.
So there we go, that's a pattern. In other words, when I multiply by a positive number, the sign stays the same, right? Started positive, ended positive. Started positive, ended positive. Started negative, ended
Negative.
negative. Started negative,
Negative.
ended negative. So here's what you need to know about multiplying and dividing by integers. If you multiply or divide by, the by is the second number, a negative, change the sign. And if you multiply by a positive, just leave it. Don't change anything. Okay? All right, you with me there? If you multiply and divide by a negative, change that sign. Now, that's one way to do it. I can show you through tables or charts, patterns, how numbers behave, and that helps us arrive at a conclusion. Let's look at this one. Reasoning well together. I told you before, I absolutely love that expression. Let's reason well together. In real life, just the English language, don't think about math for a minute. What does it mean to negate? What does it mean to negate something?
Sounds like negotiate.
Sounds like it, but has nothing to do with it.
Great.
To negate. Okay, if something in life happens that's negative, it is what?
Bad.
It's bad, right? If something in life happens that's negative, it's bad. Let's say you meet Mr. Wright. The man of your dreams. He's the greatest guy. He's sweet, he's loving, he's kind, he treats you with respect.
Is he your man
He's
crush?
hubba, hubba, hubba. All right? Now, you do something stupid and you date, after you're going out with him, you cheat. Which is like the worst thing you can possibly do. Isn't that a negative thing?
What's a negative thing?
If you made it up to him, you would be negating that negative thing. To negate it means to switch it around, to make it its opposite, okay? Now, let's say that you do something really good for somebody. Let's say you go home and you say, let's say you're a witch around the house after the breakup. Not that that could ever happen to a young lady. You're a little witchy around the house after the breakup. And then you realize you haven't been doing the best around the house and you're upsetting your parents. So you're like, oh, Mom, let me cook dinner for you. Sit down, have a seat. Let me rub your feet for you.
No.
And you're like, oh, Mom, anything for you. Let me vacuum. I'll dust the house. And I'm going to do the dishes tonight. And you do all of those things. And Mom's like, oh, I feel good. Like I knew that I would now. I feel good. Like I knew that I would now. And then all of a sudden you get just a little upset and you go, you witch, to your mother.
Oh, damn.
You have now negated all of that good stuff that you just did. It just got really ugly. Can you tell Mom's going to go from good move, feet rub to you're dead? Right? You know that's coming. Absolutely. See, to negate something means to make it its opposite, to turn it completely around. If you're doing a good thing and you negate it, what does it become?
Bad thing.
A bad thing. And if you're doing a bad thing and you negate it, what does it become? A good thing. So the word to negate means to switch it to the opposite. That's just the English language. So when you multiply by a negative number, you really have to remember that you're multiplying by the number and negating. So if I do 3 times 3, that's just 9. That never changes because I'm not negating anything. If I do 5 times 2, that's 10. I'm not negating anything. See, I'm just multiplying by a positive number. I'm multiplying by a positive number. So whatever I start with, positive, I end with positives. But now, if I did 3 times, hey, you need to focus here, you're not gonna get this. If I do 3 times a negative 3, not only am I doing the 3 times 3, which is 9, but I'm also multiplying by a negative. And when I multiply by a negative, I switch it to its opposite. So it becomes, started as positive, I have to make it opposite, which is negative. Here, I started as a positive, I have to switch it to its opposite, which is negative. So if you can do 3 times 3, you can do 3 times negative 3. If you can do 5 times 2, you can do 5 times negative 2. The only thing you have to remember is when you multiply by the negative, you have to switch that sign. Okay? All right, I think we might have another example here before I get into the next thing that you have to remember. Well, it's all the same thing, it's just different ways to remember it. Look, here I have a negative 4 times a 5, right? I have negative 4 times a 5. Now, is that 5 positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So am I going to change this sign? No, I'm multiplying by a positive. I just multiply by the 5 and I get negative 20. I started negative, I finished negative. Now I'm going to do negative 4 times negative 5. Now I multiply by the 5 part, which gets me the 20, but since I multiply by a negative, I have to change that sign. So it started negative, what does it become?
Positive.
Positive. Now, did you guys ever see a show on TV called Extreme Home Makeover?
Yes. Yeah.
Who saw that?
I wish you guys had it too.
Can I tell you what? I don't watch that show anymore. You know why? Because I cry. I do. I cry like a baby. Because the premise of the show is always that there are some really good people in the world. And these really good people put the lives of others in their community ahead of even their own lives, to the point where their own homes are not in the best of shape. They're kind of falling apart, falling down. And rather than go out and make a bunch of money and put it into their own house, they say, you know what, man, I got a neighbor in worse shape than I am. You know what we say, do unto your neighbor as you would have them do unto you. So love your neighbor as you love yourself. You say to yourself, man, I want to do for them. So these people are so great in the community that they actually, they make money and stuff, but they give it away. They make other people's lives better. So the premise of the show is this. They find out, the show finds out about somebody who's doing this for the neighborhood. And they, in turn, send them on vacation to Disney. Now, the reason they go on vacation to Disney is because it's an ABC TV show, and ABC owns Disney, or Disney owns ABC, whichever way it works. And it's a chance for them to promote Disney and ABC at the same time. So they send them to Disney for like a week or 2 weeks, or however long it takes. They get them out of town, and then they knock down their old house. Completely knock it to the ground. They cart it all away, and they build them a new house from the floor up. Every kid, they find out about every kid. Like, what are your favorite things in the world?
Food.
What?
Food.
Food. They would decorate your whole room in different kinds of food. What's your favorite thing? What do you like? Do you like music? Do you like soccer? Do you like baseball? Do you like fishing? Do you like music? They would like decorate your room in all the greatest stuff about musicians and the greatest things with music. What about you? Sports. Your room, you'd come in, you'd have like fat heads everywhere. You'd have a goal hanging out in your room. Your bed might be part of a big soccer goal. Football, they'd have like maybe part of a field goal. They would have all of that stuff going on. And so they bring in professional interior decorators. They rebuild the house better and better than ever before. So the family was in Disney World, and they fly them back to wherever they came from. They actually did this over in Centereach for a family. They fly them back, and then they park a great big Greyhound bus in front of their house. Anybody ever see what I'm talking about? They parked a great big bus in front of their house. They bring the family back in a limo, and like the family's like twitching, you know? They're like, oh God, what did you do? What did you do? What did you do? The excitement is palpable. You can see it. The people are twitching. They can't hold still. And then this guy, Ty Pennington, who runs the show, he grabs a megaphone. And he looks at the bus driver, and he goes, bus driver! You remember what he says? Move that bus! And he starts it up. And they move the bus out of the way. And the family behind the bus was the new house. Where's the new house? And the family loses it. And they'll fall on the ground. They look like they're possessed by demons. They'll fall on the ground. They'll roll around. They'll do all these other things. And then they bring them in. That's when I start getting really emotional. Because they bring them in, and like, for argument's sake, they'll talk to the husband and wife about how they cared for all these people in the community, and the whole community gets together and they want them to have something special. So They buy them something special, and they tell them the purpose behind every room and everything else. And it's really, really cool. It's a very emotional show, and I really do cry like a baby when I see the show. Yes?
Has there ever been an episode where like the family doesn't likes their house how it was and they didn't like that?
No, no, and I got to be honest with you, as someone who pays a mortgage, because they always pay the mortgage for the family too, just the fact that you pay the mortgage makes me happy. All right, that alone will do it. Let alone the fact that professional interior designers are in there taking care of your room for you. So they get all of this stuff done. But I remember the moment when Ty Pennington grabs the bullhorn, the megaphone, and goes, "Bus driver, move that bus!" And he moves the bus, and then all heck breaks loose. So what I want you to remember is this. Every single time you multiply or divide by a negative, let me give you 3 examples here before we go further. Ready? 3 times -4, 3 times 4, 3 times -5. If I'm doing this, I just look at this. First of all, you should know 3 times 4. What's 3 times 4?
12.
12. Now, did I multiply by a negative number?
No.
What kind of 4 is that, guys?
That's a -4.
It's a negative. Since I multiplied by a negative, the 3 started positive, my answer is a -12. Over here, what's 3 times 4?
12.
12. Did I multiply by a positive or a negative number?
Positive.
Positive, just leave it. Over here, what's 3 times 5?
15.
Did I multiply by a positive or a negative number?
Negative.
Negative, so I make it negative. See, it was a positive 3, so I have to change the sign to a negative. All right, I want you to do the first row. By the way, the rules for division are exactly the same. Do the first row and the first row only. Go ahead. Okay, what's 4 times 3?
12.
12. What's 4 times -3?
-12.
-12. Good, because of that negative there. What's -4 times 3? -12. This is a positive 3. Don't change it. What's -4 times -3? 12. Very good. Okay, so folks, you have tonight's homework to work on, and also prepare for that quiz tomorrow, okay? Hasta la vista. Vaya con Dios. Toodaloo. Ta-ta. Arrivederci. Smile a lot. Ciao. Arrivederci. Adios, amigos y amigas. Cheerio. Toodaloo. Garushurus. Sayonara. See ya. Have fun.
I'm not gonna.
Au revoir.